So I titled this video, Waiting for Pain. Why did I call it Waiting for Pain? Well, typically when people have chronic pain, that is pain that's lasted for more than 3 months, they probably get into some sort of habit or routine of waiting for your pain to get better before you go and do things. I myself have thought like this and used or adopted this kind of strategy, like maybe taking more time off work, not doing so much physical activity, not going to the gym anymore, exercising, socializing, doing my favorite hobbies, hanging out with friends, so on and so on, right? So the list goes on, and everybody's different. They have different interests and hobbies, and so do you, right? So are you one of those people who might have adopted this kind of strategy? Reflect upon like your time you've been diagnosed with, say, diagnosed or not, a condition, whether it be fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, neck pain, low back pain, whatever pain that has been going on for many, many years even, has waiting for your pain to go away, putting up this kind of, if my pain goes away, when my pain goes away, then I'll do something, resume my life. Has it kind of worked out? And do you think your pain has gotten better? Now, this is not to judge you, right? Because a lot of people think like this. Pain is a protective mechanism and, it hurts, right? When you do stuff. So naturally, we're not going to want to do things when we're in pain. However, one thing that I've come to find is that there is one kind of silver lining, one benefit that comes with the waiting. While we're waiting, what can work in our favor and what can not work so much in our favor? Well, what the biopsychosocial model tells us for pain is that when we have a longer time that kind of progresses, our tissues and our body heals. And this is for chronic pain conditions. I'm not talking about special kind of conditions where things may kind of have less improvement. Your body is improving. Your tissues, like my body, is naturally healing. Your tissues are naturally healing. Your cells are regenerating, and so on and so on. So on that front, your pain should be getting better. But then why is it that our pain isn't getting better overall, right? We are taking medications. Some of you may have had surgeries. Some of you may be getting like manual therapy, whether it be massage, physical therapy, chiropractor, right? Why isn't this all helping over in the long term? And even though all this time has progressed, you're managing it. It may be because you may not have been looking at the full big picture and what kind of goes into the factors that affect pain. And by the way, pain is kind of something that is produced by our brain. I'm not saying that pain is made up in your head. No. I believe that your pain is real. I'm just saying that our natural human experience for when we feel pain is produced by our brain. And those of you who are familiar with psychology, or even if you're not, you know that the brain can have many complexities when it comes to even our perception of life. So let alone pain, right? So going back to the waiting part of pain, what works for you in your favor is, yes, your body is actually healing better and better, but we may not have, and you may not have been addressing the other components of pain while you're waiting for pain. So what am I saying? Well, the biopsychosocial model says other things affect our pain as well. In terms of the psychological factors, this includes our, I don't know if I want to say this, catastrophe, right? When we're catastrophic thinking, our hypervigilance to pain, maybe even fearing pain, like movement, right? Depression, anxiety, and anger. These things can all negatively affect our pain experience. So if all the while our body is getting better, if we're having a catastrophizing kind of perception, we may fear our pain, maybe even movement itself. Like if you have low back pain, even like the slightest bit of movement, like bending, you're fearful of, and you're so protective of your body, then that's going to work against you and kind of counter it. And it may even be that your pain can get worse because if there are so many factors that go into pain and some of these are unbalanced and kind of like a pizza pie, you have a larger slice that's negatively affecting your whole pizza, then it makes sense that even if biologically, physiologically, your pain is getting better, all these other components are not, then your pain's going to get worse overall because just the majority of it wins, right? And this is not to blame you, right? The typical kind of perception of pain or understanding of pain is kind of not up to date. And that's not to blame you and your kind of knowledge. A lot of even doctors are on top of the latest neuroscience, pain neuroscience research. Like treatment for pain is, medications, maybe surgery for extreme cases, like some physical therapy, occupational therapy, manual therapy, kind of like what I talked about. But we aren't addressing the whole holistic picture when it comes to pain. And if there is such an imbalance in these other parts, then all these things I just mentioned, which actually just only treat the physical, the biological and physiological, it's not going to be enough to manage and ultimately treat your pain. Because if you're like freaking out about pain and things like that, then it's going to win out. And the second thing is to not also blame you, and it's not your fault, in that you may actually have been told this by like doctors or even therapists, like don't bend a certain way. Like if you have a back issue, maybe like don't bend, like BLTs, right? No bending, no lifting, no twisting. Well, that's for really kind of acute conditions, like you just broke some bones and like you got in a car accident or something. So it's okay to move again a certain way. It's okay to bend a little bit funny or to twist or lift this, lift that, or live our life basically. So if you're kind of protective about it, our brain is very fluid and it's constantly learning and rebuilding its neurons and its brain cells connections. If we're kind of neglecting certain parts of our body and not using it the way that it's intended to be used, and we're really protective of it, that causes fear, doesn't it, in our brain? So wouldn't that kind of trigger a pain response naturally? Or if we kind of, the saying, use it or lose it, if we don't use our body in a certain way, what research has shown us is that even within several minutes, our brain starts to neglect and forget parts of our body and even treat it as foreign. Those of you who are familiar with like autoimmune diseases, or, like even something like analogy is, allergies, right? Our body can start attacking substances that aren't even really harmful and be kind of over freaking out about it, going into this self-defensive mode and causing you to feel like uncomfortable, sneezing, coughing, you have swelling, right? It can even be life or death, like an anaphylactic shock kind of situation, closing up your airways, right? It's just like a peanut or something, right? I say just, but this is a serious condition. So our body often can misinterpret our outside environment and the stimuli and how we interact in our day-to-day. And the same exactly goes for our brain, which just happens to be where pain is processed and perceived. So I hope this is starting to make sense, in that just addressing basically the physical is what we're doing when we're waiting for pain. But if all in all, we're just like freaking out about pain, we have this kind of expectation that our pain's going to go away like on its own, just from not doing much in terms of like physical like activities and how we think about pain, then that's not going to be the way to ultimately treat our pain. And some of you may actually try this. And I'm glad you found this video, because now hopefully, I guess the word now is, I don't know, I want to use that word actually. Hopefully I've opened up your awareness to the real science of pain and how to actually treat it. And I didn't even go into the social components of pain actually. So a lot of times when we think about pain, we think about medications, doctors, manual therapy, physical, right? How many are actually thinking about how your social support or lack of social support may support or not support your pain outcomes and the symptoms that you feel and your pain intensities, even literally down to how much pain you feel in the day-to-day? Or how about how you interact with your world and where you live and what you're exposed to in your environment, like the toxins and the foods that you're eating, right? Or your socioeconomic status, right? That can affect your pain. If you're having a lot tougher time getting like healthier foods into your body, and like you're like chronically exposed to inflammation, that can affect your pain too. So there's so much that can go into pain, not just from a biological standpoint. We need to really address if we really want to tackle our pain and ultimately feel better. So waiting, yes, has its benefits, but waiting itself and not doing actual things in our actual real world is not going to help us when it comes to pain. Now, I'm not saying that sitting around is bad, right? When you're sitting around and you're kind of more sedentary, when you actually do having your pain, you can be doing something. What can you be doing? Well, that's one, you shouldn't be like freaking out and like fearing or blaming people, right? Like blaming this provider, like this doctor sucks. Like they promised they would treat my pain, but they didn't. Or they gave me this surgery and they promised they would treat my pain and made it worse. Or my pharmacist said this will help me with my pain, blah, 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 right? Just the blaming isn't going to really help your pain if you think about it. Do you think that you're blaming overall and this kind of mentality overall is going to help with your pain and the mental health aspect of your pain? Probably not, right? Instead, focus your energy when you're kind of sitting around in having a pain flare where you can't do as much physically on actually learning about pain. No, I'm not talking about learning like what your scan is or like how you crack this vertebra or what's fibromyalgia or what's chronic fatigue syndrome or what are the symptoms and how do you treat that syndrome. It's actually learning about pain itself. How many of you can explain to me in a few sentences what pain is and how you ultimately feel pain? Not related to any diagnosis. I'm talking about pain universally, right? If you think about it, we didn't learn about this in school. When you learn about all these other random subjects in school, but we all feel pain universally. It's a human, even animal kind of thing, but we actually don't learn about what goes into the components of pain, like the biopsychosocial model in school. And we should have, because I think if we did learn this back in this day, like in school, like we would probably be much better off in terms of our overall pain outcomes. A lot of the things that have been overlooked are everything else besides the physical. And I'm not saying I'm not a proponent of the physical, because what I kind of ultimately advocate for is taking action. So going back to what you learn, it's actually learning about pain, and I have a lot of content on this channel on the topic of pain. And if you want to learn even more, type in PNE, which is Pain Neuroscience Education, and learning about pain itself. Next is our expectation of pain. So now you have a knowledge of pain, right? Now you learn all this about pain. What do you do with all this knowledge of pain, right? You can basically have an expectation and thinking. Now this is where you kind of contemplate on what you're going to do. Like, okay, so I've been doing this kind of like the wrong way. I've been kind of very narrow, kind of tunnel vision and focusing on maybe this therapy or this approach or this medication. Now you're going to take a step back, and it's kind of like your mind is now free and open, and you have this whole kind of, I would say, permission. Like I give you this permission to actually now rethink about how you're going to treat your pain. I say treat because yes, it is entirely possible to treat your pain, to make it go from a 90% to a 10% of pain in your life. I would call that treat it, right? I would take that any day. And that's where I'm kind of at, from where I was at with, I was like at the 90% of pain in my day to day to my 10%. And that entirely is what I'm going to talk about on this channel, like what my insights are. So last is you can learn about all the pain, and that is good for you, like in the world in terms of the education. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to take action, right? The analogy is like, how are you going to be healthier in terms of like physical exercise, right? You can like learn about how to do an exercise. You can buy all the equipment. You have gym membership, or you buy equipment at home. You get a Peloton bike. At the end of the day, you're going to have to ride that bike or go on a walk or go and work out or go to the gym, right? So taking action. So I know if you're in chronic pain, the idea of even doing anything physical is like, no, Jeff, like, how's that possible? I'm in pain, right? So the key is to think about it. On your day-to-day, are you in pain 100% of the time? Probably not. Even if you're in pain 90% of the time, you have 10% of the day, when you're not sleeping at least, when you're not in pain. Are you fully taking advantage of these windows of opportunity to do something physical in your life, that the things that are meaningful and engaging and motivational for you? It doesn't even have to be exercise. It can be just something that's related to taking care of yourself. Brushing your teeth, combing your hair, taking a shower. You haven't taken a shower, like an actual shower, for like many years. Maybe that motivates you. Or to do your nails, or to shave, or to put on your favorite t-shirt and go and like walk your dog or something, right? All of us have some sort of like motivation, right? What we might have lost it, but we enjoyed some activities in the past. And many of you who have had chronic pain for a long time probably have given up on a big list of activities, right? Things you like to do: gardening, golf, walking your dog, going to the movies, reading. Key is to take small steps and to celebrate your small steps. The person you're only comparing yourself is to yourself. You shouldn't be comparing yourself to your friends or your neighbor or like whoever else, right? Your goal is to increase your activity level, taking very small steps, right? To be very patient with yourself, just any increase, as long as it's not the same amount, just more than what you've been doing. And that shouldn't be hard to do, because you're kind of probably at the bottom in terms of activity level if you've been really listening to your pain and waiting for your pain to go away, right? So you have so much more potential. And the key I like to say on my channel is to not go with the saying, no pain, no gain. That's horrible advice when it comes to just in general, actually. Pain is there to tell you that your body is trying to protect you. Well, then don't I kind of sound kind of contradictory? Well, Jeff, like you're saying, try and do something out there, but I'm actually in pain. So how does that work out, right? Going back to the windows of pain-free living, use those as opportunities to do some light activity. And the moment you actually do experience pain, and you will, right? To not freak out and not, I know the emotions and the thoughts that come with it. Don't judge yourself on that. That's natural. Like, we're all going to think like this. Many people think like this. I myself have been there. You're going to have negative thoughts or, oh no, I can't do this. No, even though you have all these thoughts, focus on the big goal, whatever that goal it may be, the light at the end of the tunnel, taking small steps and working your way up, right? Like, you already know this, like the key to doing anything big is taking it and breaking it into small steps and getting better with that and slowly building your way up. Pain is no different. Right. So if you think about it, why have we been so protective and so like guarded when it comes to our pain, when with other things that take courage and bravery and overcoming our fears and our anxiety, we probably have less problem doing, right? Probably because it doesn't hurt. So what I'm doing is I'm giving you permission. When you're not feeling pain, go do a little bit and kind of experiment and see what can push you over the edge and cause a super pain flare up, or just giving you a slight bit of pain, right? So you're gonna have to really take notes and gain insight and reflect on what you do on your day-to-day and how much you can actually do. And it can be hard if you're, especially you have like depression, anxiety, to remember all this. So keep like a diary or a journal or put it into your phone, like what you're doing, how much pain it results in, and how you feel, and just write all this down. Our brain is already dealing with so much pain. You don't have to add more in terms of your cognitive mental energy. Just put it down, write it down so you can look back on it and say, okay, yesterday, let's go with walking, for example. I walked from here to the door and it actually did not hurt. Cool. But when I walked from here to the mailbox, it resulted in like a lot more pain. Okay, so that's way too much. So I'm going to go from here to the door, and then door to the hallway, and then hallway to the, front door. And then from there, front door to halfway to the mailbox, so really adding very little bit at a time. I'm not talking like even like doubling it. I'm just saying like just adding a smidge more of activity and just seeing how that feels. And when you do have your flare-ups, like I said, don't freak out about it. I mean, it's going to be natural, but don't let that stop you, and stay committed, stay with it. And at the end of the day, just keep at it, basically, and you'll be surprised at how much you can do. So I hope this helped. If this really helped you, it may or may not, right? All this is kind of like just me talking. You're going to have to get out there and do stuff, and then go do that. And then come back like months later or years later and comment on this video and like this video then when it has improved upon your life. And so that ultimately can help other people in our community and to provide other social support, right? Biopsychosocial, to be able to benefit from this knowledge and some of the insights that you kind of mentioned in the comments. So thanks for watching, and go out there and get some fresh air.